All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is now 6 o'clock Verizon time. I would like to welcome everyone to the SAE professional development session that we're having here this evening. Unfortunately, of course, we can't be in person. Several of you guys have already been to several of the breakout sessions already. I appreciate that. So far, this has been really successful. All right, but if this is your first one that you're tuning into, if you could, please change your name on your screen so it doesn't say Tree Hugger 95 trying to talk to us, so that way we know who we're talking to. What you can do is you can hover over your name and click on the three little blue dots, and then you can select rename, and then that'll allow us all to communicate pretty well. The success of this professional development hinges entirely on your participation. Fortunately, we've had some excellent participation already in the sessions that we've already had. This will make number 6 that we've done so far, and they've all been very largely successful. So we encourage everyone to participate. We're starting off with some people, but they're not the only people that can share. They just kind of get the ball rolling, and then we'll go from there. Some ground rules. We have some facilitators who volunteered, like I just said. We'll open it up for them, and then we'll open it up for the floor after that. Please utilize the chat. So if you have any questions specifically about some stuff, please utilize the chat box. If you scroll or move your mouse down to the bottom, depending on what you're on, you can see the chat. That may be a little bit different on a phone. These sessions will be recorded so that you can view them later. It is a growing task for Dr. Parks and myself to try to organize all of this stuff. It's mounting up very quickly. And so we're going to try to process this stuff pretty quickly, or as quick as we can, so that we can make these available to you to watch at a later date. If you have any resources that you want to share that come up in this, several of you already sent stuff to Dr. Parks and myself. Feel free to do that. Dr. Parks will probably type in our email addresses here in just a second, so you can send stuff to us. What we're going to do with that is hopefully everyone that is on here has registered through the link that we have on the Georgia Ag Ed website. So if you go to the Georgia Ag Ed website, then you click on GVATA, you should see the conference schedule. And there's where you can click on all the different little sessions. So you could click on the one right now for SAE, and it's going to ask you to put in your email address. If you do that, then we know who is interested in which session. So we're not cluttering up people's email addresses or emails with all these different emails about different professional development sessions. And then the last part is that has kind of been a trend that we're going to kind of continue, is that the last 10, 15 minutes or so will really focus on virtual stuff. You know, this is a weird year. Everything's different. We're going to try to approach things, you know, as normal as we can. But the reality is that some of this stuff will need to be virtual. The SAE is an interesting component of our program, and I think that it probably lends itself the most to virtual, in my opinion. But without further ado, Ms. Jessica Bowden, are you ready to begin?
I am.
All right, the floor is yours.
Okay, first I'm going to try to figure out how to share the screen. I am a 13-year teacher. I'm a 13-year veteran teacher. And one of the first things I wanted to bring up about this is everybody has their own way of doing SAEs and how they like to do record keeping. So when Walt asked me, I was like, I like to talk about record keeping because I do something different that I introduced a couple of years ago. I actually require my students to have 5 hours of community service to submit whenever they turn their SAEs in. And I started doing that because I was having problems with my students reaching all the community service hours they needed for their state degree. So if I can start them their freshman year, then by the time they become a junior, they've had enough hours saved up and they know what they need to do. So one of the things I put on here that for you to see first is a community service verification form that I created. I did share this with Walt, so he will be sending it out if you are interested in using it. But I took it from someone else. And if you look down, one thing I ran into was sometimes the students do more hours on different days with different services, like different communities. So I put this down here where they can choose the date and they put the different times. But I do require them to tell me what they have done and write like a description on there, because, you know, they can say that they helped at a food closet, but I want to see that they've learned something different. And then when in doubt, I always put on here that they've got to clear it with me about community service. Of course, you always have the kid that says picking up trash, and I always have to say it can't be court mandated community service. You know, we all have those that do that. So anyway, this is just a form that I created. I have a huge packet that I put out. I know that Walt is going to talk about the AET system. I have tried the AET system and it's nothing wrong with it. It's probably the operator, but I couldn't justify to my administrator using the AET system. And I'll be honest, I couldn't get the results I wanted from my students because I'm a little more, I don't know how to say it. I require a lot more of my students when it comes to the SAE. The other thing I shared with Walt to share with you is, in case you are in a system that can't afford AET or you just can't use it or don't want to use it, I did share my rubric that I use. I make my students turn in two different things. One thing they turn in to me is a booklet of all their record keeping that they have done. And then the second thing they have to turn in is a presentation. So mine's like a two-part series. My school's different in grading. I count my SAE as my final exam because they will not allow it. Anyway, it's just weird. They won't allow me to make it a chunk of their grade. So I do have a booklet. If you are interested in my packet, I don't mind sharing it because I do have dates throughout the system where I do formative assessments. So that way it doesn't tackle them in the end and it won't fail them in the class. But looking at this, I require my students to give me a project summary just because I like to see what they've done. Their photos of work, if you can see, I require them to give me a photo and 5 points for the description because I want them to learn how to tell me what they're doing in their picture.
Hey, Jessica.
Yes.
If you want to show them that second document, you need to click on share screen again and select that window.
Oh, I'm learning. There, can y'all see it now?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So this is my rubric that I use, the grade sheet. I require my students to give me a title page, just like they're turning in a report. But I make them do a project summary. And then on their pictures, like I was saying, I make them give me a picture. And then I used to require more than 8 pictures, but then I started receiving duplicate pictures. So I backed it down to 8 instead of 10. But I do give them half credit for their descriptions. And then the community service, you can see right here, I've got all that. They have to have a verification signature in order for me to accept it. And I do offer extra points for students that have more than just, I only require my students to have 15 hours. I'm in a different area where we are not I have a lot of inner city students. And so 15 hours sometimes is very hard for them to achieve. So the one thing I do want to say about SAEs is I just spoke at another conference about this, but if you are a new teacher and you're on here and you're just now figuring out SAEs, have a little grace with yourself. Don't go in and expect to have SAEs that are going to be just mind-blowing if it's your first year, and especially a first-year program. But if you would like, I do have a booklet. Let me see if I can figure out how to do this. Ooh. I think this is it. So this is my packet that I use, that I give out to my students. The main thing I do need to say to change is I do go through the requirements, but my categories, now there's an SAE for all, so I've got to change that. And then here is my project binder information. And if you want me to share this with you again, I can, but this is the stuff that I go through the whole year. If you look, mine actually starts in January. Some of you know I was diagnosed with Lyme disease, so my fall of last year was just a mess. I was very sick, so we were very behind the ball on SAEs, so we all have problems, so no judgment. But I did start my SAEs in January, so COVID really kicked me on that one, so SAEs kind of fell to the wayside this year. But It's okay. It all happens. But if you are interested, just let Walt know, or you can put in the chat and they'll let me know. But the other thing I do for record keeping is I just have some pages like accounts sheets, work logs, and all of that stuff. But I just didn't share those because they're just a typical Word document that you can just type into. So that's most on record keeping. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I was trying to keep it fast because I know there's a lot of us that can speak, and a lot of us can get carried away talking about SAEs, especially when we've been doing it for 13 years. Other than that, I don't know if anybody has any questions.
All right. Anyone have any questions? Emily Fellenbaum? I'm so interested. Second year teacher here, and keeping SAEs organized has been a bit of a struggle, but I love this. Jesse, yeah, we're going to share the packet. Don't worry about that.
So go ahead and send that packet in the other 2 documents you shared, because I've only got 2.
Okay, and honestly, if y'all would like, I can share the documents that I use for my record keeping end, because I have an accounts page, an inventory sheet, and a work log. Walt, I can send all those to you so people can access them. I don't mind sharing because we all have to start from somewhere, and I'm pretty sure I adapted some of this stuff from other people.
Okay.
Anything else?
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. If there's anything else that comes up that you have a question for Jessica, put it in the chat for sure. We'll ask her. And Miss Pauline, you're going to be next, but I would be remiss. I failed to mention this, and don't everybody run to the videos because there's nothing that triggered this. However, be sure that you are thinking about your professionalism in the videos here. You know, we are in a professional setting, so make sure that nothing crazy goes on in the background for us. So anyway, Miss Pauline Benton, you are up next. Feel free to take it away.
All right. Hi, guys. I am Pauline Benton. I teach at Creekview High School. That's Cherokee County, Georgia, in the North Region. And I'm also one of the new Ag Teacher Ambassadors for National FFA for this year. And one of our responsibilities is to share the resources that National FFA has available. So I'm just going to show you a few things about SAE for All. Some of you might have attended my workshop at Midwinter. And I'm also going to do some virtual workshops. So if you didn't attend and you want more information about SAE for All, I'm still learning a lot about it also, you know, and how it can be used. So I'm open to discussions and questions about that. So I'm just going to share my screen, maybe. Okay, I probably have too many windows open. Okay, can you see that?
Not yet.
Okay.
So if you click on share screen and then just select the particular window that you want to share.
Oh,
Right.
sorry, I see it now. It didn't show all the windows. I had to click show all windows because I got too much open. All right, now you can see it? All right, great.
Yes.
Okay, so if you just Google SAE for All or go saeforall.org, you'll find this page. So this was created not actually by FFA, but by the Ag Ed, my mind just went blank, organization. And the idea behind this was to help teachers with a program that would develop those students that may not normally do an FFA. So this is how this came about, a SAE. So, you know, those kids that just refuse to do SAEs or just can't come up with anything, they live in an apartment and you're having to pull teeth to get them to do an SAE, this was created. And so you can go here, click on I'm an educator and access those resources. So when you get to these resources, there's a complete teacher edition and student edition. And then if you scroll down, there's independent learning guides. So this is great for virtual learning. You can upload the guide and the activities and have students, you know, maybe you do SAE activities once a week during virtual learning, and you can have them work through these activities. They're divided into awareness, intermediate, and advanced. The awareness is grades 6 through 9, intermediate's 9 through 11, and then advanced is 11 through 12. So the activities build on each other from year to year. And just to show you an example of an activity for 6th through 9th grade, there's a list of activities, but and they are categorized into 5 areas. And this is a career focus one. And you can see that they are looking up activities and CDEs and learning more about them. So that might be something you already do, but it's put together here in this guide for you. So that would be one of the activities that they would complete. There's also the career planning, where they would go to Ag Explore or other places where they could learn about ag careers. So that develops as you move along, and they become more advanced. And so they're adding more and more activities to these. There's things about making budgets. If you see here, okay, well, maybe not. That's missing something. There's 5 categories, and they are career exploration and financial planning. There is safety. That's the 3rd one. And there's these 5 areas. The 5th area is where they get into the immersion SAEs. And then you can see here that there are activity guides and resources coming for all of those immersion SAEs. So the goal is to start them off in this foundational. And even that kid who's not going to have an SAE, at least they're learning about careers, they're learning about financial management, they're learning to look at colleges that might have agriculture-based careers, they're looking at safety, doing all of those things. So they have an SAE. It doesn't qualify the hours for state FFA degree, because that's obviously to be more advanced and be an immersion SAE. But for those kids that aren't going to do a project anyway, this is a great activity to give them, so they're at least growing as a student and maybe finding a career they might be interested in. And I use it in my class. My Thursdays are SAE days, and so I'll pull activities every few weeks from this to include, like, creating a budget, doing the career exploration. When I do my safety lessons, that's included in there. And so there's activities for each of those areas. Any questions?
Good deal. Any questions for Ms. Benton here?
One more thing I'd share is one of the cool things that I used it for was we started a doggy daycare this year with my vet science class. And in the immersion SAEs, there are some good things on building a business. And there's a guide for creating a business plan. So I use that guide with my students to create that business plan for the doggy daycare. So if you're going to have like a greenhouse business at your school or anything like that, it was under this school-based enterprise. And so I used those resources for writing a business plan, and my students followed that. Other great resources down here at the bottom is there's a video of different students doing SAEs, and then these SAE idea cards. That's what we always hear. I have no idea what to do. So if you go to SAE idea cards, they're divided into all of the broad topic areas: food, product and processing, power structure, natural resources, plants, animals, ag communication. You can actually print those. They're very colorful and engaging. We used them spread around the room. Like we had a table that was for plant science. We had a table that was for food processing. And I cut these out and students could pick them up and look at them, and they had to write at least 5 that they were interested in. I did this with my basic ag. And then from those 5, they're going to do more research and choose one of those from those SAE card ideas.
All right, we did have one question if there are any ideas for middle school on a 9-week rotation with a lot of students repeating 3rd and 4th 9 weeks. I don't know.
With them repeating grades, I would, maybe do I know it says 6th through 9th and 9th through 11th, but you could take it that next step, like the first 9 weeks they're with you. You can be doing the Ag Explorer and having them just find an ag career. And then the second 9 weeks, if they're repeating with you, then you could make them actually look for available jobs in that career area and find out what the salary is and just go into more depth there. So there's a lot of resources there that you could, use one set first 9 weeks and then another set second 9 weeks.
All right, good deal. Any other questions for Ms. Benton? I wanted to remind everyone too that there's a lot of resources available on the Ag Teacher Share. The Ag Teacher Share Drive, what it is a Google Share Drive that Dr. Katrina Pollard, she created it. And so she manages it. And it's completely separate, just kind of a volunteer kind of thing. And it's become pretty popular. And so you'll hear a lot of people talk about the Ag Share Drive. There's several people that help her manage it. I think Walt, maybe Sarah Nerswick, I'm not sure. No, I don't know. You're involved in all kinds of stuff. So anyway, you'll hear people reference that a lot. And if you're interested, you can email Katrina Pollard. She just put her email address in the chat, and you can have access to all of the resources that are on that Ag Teacher Share Drive. And you could also add to it. Ashley Thompson said, has anybody had any luck with SAE for all in middle school? Anyone? While we're waiting to maybe get a response out of that, Mr. Bennett, you're up next. Mr. Pete Bennett.
Okay, remind me what I'm supposed to talk about.
Walt, what did he sign up for?
Well, I know we had talked about you did a good job with SAEs. Talk about how you have, what's that one day a week where you do, what do you call it?
Yeah, I do a Genius Hour on Fridays.
On Fridays, yeah. Okay. Talk about that a minute if you don't mind.
Fridays is SAE record days. We have to update all our records for the week, and then I have all my students develop, and it goes along with what Pauline was saying about SAE for all. It would be one of those foundational type of SAEs. They got to find something that they're interested in, and they're going to work on it pretty much on their own. And I've got 30 kids in a class, and they may all be going in different directions, so they pretty much have to do it on their own. I can't do everything. But I'll have some kids that have an interest in videography, and they'll go do some videography or some video editing on their own. And kids that are interested in writing, and they'll start writing up like a news release. And they're just getting better at that. Photo editing is a big one for some of them. Then I got, of course, the kids that want to go do something in the shop. We've got some tools in the shop that I brought from home, like one of those little small mini lathes, the one that they do, Penn State Industries puts out. So you can make the little pin kits on a lathe, and I have one of those, and I had kids that have started with just learning to use the lathe because they thought it was kind of cool. Well, they watch videos on the internet first, YouTube stuff, and then they got to look into the safety of it, and then I take them out once I get some other people going and show them how to use it and dangers of it, cover safety with them. But nobody else can go out there and do it because they're the only ones that have been covered for doing that. Also have kids that'll do laser engraving and some of the other stuff that we talked about in the Ag Mechanics breakout session. But that's pretty much it. It really works well with what Pauline was talking about with SAE for All, because a lot of my kids that come in and think, well, I'm not going to be a farmer, they get to do some other stuff. And although, as Mr. Lashley's pointed out, lately it may not be one of those proficiency award winners, and it may not be something that gets you your state degree. My idea behind an SAE is it going to give you some experience working, and may lead to something that you can get a job with. Because in my mind, that's really what SAE is all about. Kids come out and they don't have any experience doing anything. If I can get them some experience doing something, and especially in my school situation, very small single A school, 48 kids graduating, and they got pretty much ag, and they got ROTC, and they got business. We don't even have an art program anymore. So a lot of my kids are doing things and exploring interests in my class that they don't have any other opportunity to do that with. So that's what I got. Questions?
Questions for Mr. Pete Bennett.
I just want to sing Mamma Mia, let me go really bad right now. My wife's threatening to kill me from the other room.
I love it. All right. Well, we're going to move on from Mr. Pete Bennett. If you have a question, just put it in the chat box. And, I mean, let's be clear. There are 163 of you guys out there, or 163 of us, 162 of y'all. Walt, Dr. Parks, you are up. Would you like to share?
Sure. Thanks, Marcus. So I'm going to share my screen here real quick. Now, I know a lot of you use AET, and I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the free resources that are available at the AET.com. Now, some of those have already been talked about SAE for All, but there's a lot of stuff here that many people do not know that's here, and it's 100% free. You do not have to have a subscription at all. It's THEAET.com. If Marcus will type that in the chat, because I can't see the chat right now because I'm sharing my screen. But the home page here, there's a rolling banner up here at the top, and of course you have SAE for All is listed there from the council. Getting started, that's more for AET stuff. This right here is called the best management practices for SAEs, and there's some really good stuff here. You've got some examples of good SAEs. One of the things that I like is that there's some real good lessons here that talks about terminology. I used to not know the difference between current and non-current inventory, and I was like, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. And so there's some really good lessons on here that you can teach yourself and your students, because you only got to stay one day ahead of them, especially for new teachers. That's all you got to do. And so you can learn about those terminology, and they have quizzes. If you'll find that, it's under curriculum. And they have two areas here, AET in the classroom and Explore SAE. Now, AET in the classroom is a little bit more towards using the AET and how to use it. But they do have some lesson plans up here that is useful for anybody when you're talking about SAEs, especially this first one here, talking about getting started with AET in important terms. They got some PowerPoints. They've got these little quizzes, and I love when they give quizzes and they give the key, because sometimes I don't know the answers either. But here's, for instance, here's a financial terms quiz that you can hand out to your students, and all they have to do is do a matching, and you can have the key, and then you can give them the blank one. It doesn't have the key on it. And it shows you all these terms. Y'all can talk about them. Then you can pair them up or whatever, and they can try to figure out the answer to these questions and these definitions. They have ag education terms. For instance, talking about the different types of SAEs and what they are. But you can do, again, a matching. They describe a certain type of SAE, and you try to figure out which category that goes in and that fits with. So there's some really good stuff on here. Again, 100% free that you can get. They also have this little section called Explore SAE, which is kind of similar to SAE for All, but it's a little different, and it's made by the folks that make the AET. And they break it down into these 4 areas, of course, that we have. And the neat thing is they got these little videos, and Dr. Hannegriff talks about the SAEs, what they are, and then they give video examples of kids that have these SAEs. They have a PDF, and they have a little video in all these different areas, plant systems, leadership and education, animal systems, etc. These are really good, just like what Pauline was talking about. Kids don't have a clue what they want to do. These are some good examples that you can show. You can let them go to this site on their own if you have computers in your room or whatever. This would also be good for that virtual learning. This is a really good website for them to go to, and they can learn about SAEs, and maybe they can find something they can do at home. So again, there's some really good resources here on the SAE, on the AET.com. They also have some teacher tools. You have lessons. And this has nothing to do with the AET. This is simply SAE specific. So I found this several months ago, and I was like, wow, I had no idea. I've been using the AET for several years, and I had no idea this was here. We just log in and use it, but there's some really good stuff here that they provided for free. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm sure there's some questions.
Yeah, there was some stuff. Brianna Stoops, she said she has her students take the survey to see what SAE fits them the best. And then she turns it in on Google Classroom, or they turn it in on Google Classroom. A little bit further north in the chat, you had Miss Sarah Nerswick that shared a good article about Genius Hour that some people may want to look into. That was what Mr. Pete Bennett was talking about. And so if you wanted to figure out a little bit more of the details about that or justify doing that, that's a good article to reference. Dr. Parks, I know that Justin Bennett may want to share something after me. And so if you want to go ahead, you're the host, you can make him a co-host.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to talk, but I don't need to share anything in regards to a screen. One of the things that Miss Cecily Gunter and I have done in the past that has worked really well is that we just have a lot of projects here at the school. And so I'm kind of going to talk a little bit about school-based enterprise. I wish that I could tell you that we've made a ton of money off of school-based enterprises and you know, it's the solution to all of your fundraising concerns, but that's not what I'm going to tell you. It probably can be, and it probably has been for other people. But we have school-based enterprises not to have a fundraiser, but just to have a financial project that the students are working on. That's really the goal. And so we have several, and they fluctuate in popularity. And I tell people that our projects ramp up and ramp down based off of student interest. We have an aquaponics system that I've been told is one of the largest ones this side of the Mississippi. I mean, it's over 2,000 gallons. You know, it's impressive. It's pretty cool. Right now, there's nothing growing in it. You know, we've got this firewood project that really took off last semester, and we had 4 young men that really took off with it, and they would stay after school. They converted a lawnmower trailer to be able to haul firewood. They sold several loads of firewood, and they sold out. They couldn't keep up, you know, and I think that that's something that's going to come forward, you know, again in the fall. Hopefully, if we get back here, I think that will take off again. And so we have school-based enterprises and a lot of different ones, you know, so many different ones. The kids sell lettuce out of aquaponics, kids sell the firewood, kids have done the dog grooming thing. There's just so many different things that we kind of turn into a school-based enterprise. And the way that we do it is that we try to provide them opportunities through grants. And the biggest thing that I can tell you guys, I'm not going to sit here and give any secret about a grant. I think that you look at the grant description, you look at whatever rubric is provided or whatever verbiage is provided, and you build your application off of that. And the thing that I like to tell people is that we're ag teachers. And if you talk about little baby chickens to us, you know, it's cool, you know, but it's nothing new. A lot of people that we know have had baby chickens in their classroom, no big deal. But if a grant writer or a grant or viewer, whoever is awarding the grant, typically is not an ag teacher, typically has never had baby chickens in a classroom and thinks that it's one of the best things since sliced bread. And so I think that a lot of our ideas that we kind of take for granted, even, you know, kind of the attitude in this professional development stuff, some of the things that we just think, you know, we do that, no big deal, or so-and-so does that, no big deal. You know, the people that are reviewing these grants, you know, they think it's just awesome. And so I would encourage you guys to think about applying for more grants, even for some of the things that you think are just not that big of a deal, because that is how Cecily and I have been able to provide an aquaponics system for when we do have a student that comes along and is very interested. I mean, we've got, for the firewood stuff, we've got chainsaws, which scared the heck out of me initially, but I'm all right with it now. We've got a log splitter, you know, we've got things that we've built up because of grants. And so I would just recommend in regards to the school-based enterprise, if you're looking to gather some equipment for some of this stuff, try looking at grants. And so a great question, and I get it all the time, where is a good place to look for grants? You know, Krista Steinkamp sends stuff out across the Ag Ed listserv all the time. And it's little grants here and there, $500 here, $1,000 here. The Agribusiness Council does a grant. I'm willing to bet that your local EMC chapter, or local EMC does a grant. There's all these different grants across the web, across your community. And so you just kind of keep your eye open to grants, and we don't necessarily look for them, but whenever we see them, we fill it out. We take time, we sit down, and we put together a good application. Katrina Pollard just shared something. Teachers Change Lives, grants for teachers. So there you go. There's a list of grants. So anybody have any questions about that? Yeah, Rebecca said that it's low tech, but a simple Google search has often helped me. Yeah. And then, I mean, I can talk about the firewood because that's probably been the most successful. The kids probably raised, I don't know, $800 or so selling firewood, you know, after expenses and stuff. And so they made, I don't know, 11, 12 cords of firewood, you know, and delivered that much firewood and sold it $100 a cord. Melissa Riley mentioned something about this when she was doing floral design, when we did the floral design professional development. And I want to say this too. Whenever we do a school-based enterprise, I realize that I have free labor, free equipment, free electricity, free water, free facilities, whatever, typically, and that I am at an advantage compared to somebody in my community that is trying to make a living doing this. And so we're very cognizant of not undercutting somebody and affecting somebody in our community negatively. And I don't think that anything that we have done has done that. In fact, if I have reached out to people in my community that sell firewood and said, hey, we're doing this, what would you recommend that we sell it for? And I know specifically the young men for the firewood project, they had this system set up where for every 10 cords of firewood they sold, and they were planning this for this next year, that they would donate to somebody. They would have a running list of some elderly or whatever that needed some firewood to help out their stuff. So we think about ways to give back, whether that is a FFA camp scholarship, you know, whatever. We think about ways to implement some of that money and give it back. So it's not just hey, let's raise a ton of money. It's more about the business side of things. So tractor supply, grants for growing, that's a big one. That's a really good one. Any other questions? What does our record keeping look like for the school-based? One thing that Ms. Gunner and I, we reference quite often, this is well, specifically for SAE, of course, this is a student-led organization. And so Ms. Gunner and I will supervise some record keeping, but the students are doing it. And so sometimes that's a pad that kids are writing on, and sometimes that's a Google sheet. It really depends on the kid and the project and all of that. Yeah, we actually have had some students sit down and write the grant, specifically kids that have an agricultural education proficiency. We will typically pull them in for a grant process and allow them to help participate with that. All right, that's all I've got, Dr. Parks, unless somebody has any other questions.
All right, thank you, Marcus. All right, Justin Bennett, if you want to share, go ahead.
All right, this is nothing special, nothing new, but it really changed my world last spring. We went to the virtual world, and we had to use Google Classroom for the first time. I had to put my record book on Google Classroom, and so I had to just do a simple Google Doc for it. I'm going to change to Google Slides, and when we go back into school here this fall, and so everything fits on one slide. What I really like on the right-hand side are the comments between me and the student, and also the rubric I built into the document. And so it's a live document, and we can chat back and forth with different questions or problems they have. I always had a hard time as a teacher giving feedback or comments on either written or verbal and finding time and how to do that. But Google Classroom makes a great platform to communicate with the student back and forth, even timestamps it for you. And then they can go through here and fill out their record book. And then I have areas at the bottom where they have their time, of course, and their pictures, if they have any income or expenses they learned. So I'm going to adapt this for, like I say, Google Slides, so everything fits on one slide and hang over from page to page. And if we are in school, they can present this in class through Google Slides, and everything is there for the class presentation. And it's all in one spot. And like I say, it really made my organization of keeping up with all these projects and what the kids are doing and seeing it in real time a whole lot easier as we went home last spring and not at school. So that's really all I have. It's just nothing special, but just the format and the platform changed how you can communicate with your students.
Skylar Alexander had a good point. She said when she tried to put all of her SAE stuff on Google Classroom, she ended up with a ton of problems with parents not understanding if they were doing it at home or students forgetting. So when she uploads the record book, she also uploads an instruction page that says, read this first. I go step by step on how to complete it and turn it in. Saved me a huge headache for her second semester. Anybody want to talk about that, communicating this stuff to parents?
Well, the good part there, Marcus, is that we're on an 18-week system in the middle school level, and we had already started SAEs, and they were due May 1st. So I kept that same deadline, but instead of turning a paper copy or on a poster board or other visuals, so they already had them, most of them started, so they had the idea of what it was. But I would agree to put all of it on Google Classroom, all the instructions, and I have a list of over 100 ideas for middle school students that I give them in different categories that match up to the middle school record book. And so that helps them out a lot about understanding what it's all about.
Ashley Thompson had a good idea, make a YouTube video going over all the procedures and how to fill out the record books and the directions. I was just talking about this with somebody a little bit ago. You can create your own Zoom and record yourself doing, sharing your screen. And I mean, that's just one way. There's a lot of different ways that you can, do screen capture, but everybody's getting more familiar with Zoom. And so you can have a one-man Zoom show and really record some instruction that you want to put out there. So that's an idea.
And Skylar, we've had a request to share that read this first instructions. So if you want to send that to Marcus or I'd appreciate it. We'll share that with everybody else.
Caitlin had a good point. She said she did an SAE parent-student forum at the beginning of the semester. particularly in the digital realm that we're in. That may not be a bad idea. The Screencastify extension lets you import directly to your Google Drive, so that's really good, Chelsea.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a Google Drive, that's a good thing to work with.
Brianna Berry wishes somebody to elaborate on the Google Slides for the record book portion they turn in. If somebody's willing to talk about that. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
We can now. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I'm using my phone and I don't know how to use the the program on here. But we are a one-to-one technology middle school. So this is something I actually started doing this year with the Google Slides. I created a template and I actually put the instructions for what they need to do on each page in the speaker notes at the bottom. Oh, sorry. My GPS is going, hold on a second. All right, anyways, I put the instructions down in the speaker's notes on Google Slides, and I always tell students to go and view that first. Basically what I do, since it's, since it's middle school, I basically take just each page of the required middle school record book and I duplicate it kind of in my own format on each slide, and then so they can go from slide to slide, and at the end there's a grading slide with how they're actually graded. I hope that was helpful.
It was, thank you. Now we're less than 15 minutes from this thing ending, and so if we would like to kind of switch over to the more virtual stuff, I think a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about is really applicable to virtual and at a distance and all that. I mean, SAE home visits, I mean, that's the thing, it's a one-on-one student thing. So anybody have any ideas about what they're going to alter in regards to SAEs and if we're at a distance?
Marcus, I can share something real quick.
Please.
So I always do agri-science fair to start with my basic ag kids. The first semester is all agri-science fair, and that's a great way for virtual learning because I make my kids do it individually anyway. So they're all individual. It's usually done at home anyway. And then like Justin was saying, you can take the National FFA agri-science fair document, put it into a Google document. It has all those help text to help write the intro, to help write the literature review. So you just give all the kids their own copy of that document. You go in there, you write comments in there as they're writing their paper along with their stuff. We also integrated a lot of Flipgrid this spring. So the kids are verbally saying and not just typing. So agri-science fair is a great way to get kids like kicked off with SAEs. And since they're already individual, they're already at home. If they can't travel, most of them can do something at home. And if they can't, maybe you can scrounge up some supplies from your greenhouse or whatever for them to do a drive-by pickup.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. It happens, I've recommended it sometime. If I had a kid that like stalled in their SAE, that they just kind of plateaued and they don't know what to do next or whatever, agri-science fair is always something that I recommend because you can evolve an agri-science fair every single year. And so
I wanted to throw this out there. With the agri-science fair, that was something, Sarah, that I'm actually looking into for my students this year. But I think it was yesterday or maybe it was the day before, but National FFA sent out an Owls in the Classroom email. They're hosting some online professional development and they're having one. If you go back and look, I registered for it, but in the agenda, they're infusing agri-science into instruction just because I need some help with agri-science fair. I've never been strong on it. So just pay attention to your emails because National FFA is sending some stuff out. So I've signed up for that. I don't know if anybody else would be interested in that agri-science, like infusing it into the classroom instruction. I don't know what I'll glean from it, but you can always learn something new.
So I just wanted to kind of go off what Miss Nerswick was saying. So especially for my 9th grade group, I always try to do an agri-science. That way the students can really get a feel of what I expect. We have them year long, so the first semester we'll do an agri-science. That way they kind of know what I expect for the second semester, and that's kind of what I'm going to try and do this year. And then while I took Dr. Flanders' class last week, I don't know if any of y'all took that. He provided the materials needed for that workshop via mailing the materials, and kind of what Ms. Nerswick was saying, it kind of gave me the idea to do agri-science like that, providing materials for my students, whether it be via pickup or actually mailing those items or running them to them some way. I think it was a really good, sorry, my dog's barking, a good way to get those kids to have those materials to still do hands-on activities.
Sounds good. I think the dog was excited about it too. All right. Anyone else with some stuff?
I was going to, you might have to turn yourself down, Michael. Sorry, we're in the same room. Hold on. If you'll let me screen share, Mr. Pollard.
Dr. Parks?
Let me find it. So we all have those. I specifically do this with 9th graders. It's my oh crud, my SAE didn't work out. They, 9th graders come in and they're like, yeah, I'll do whatever. And then come November, they're like, I have no idea what I'm doing for my SAE. And so I created this after going to NAAE and doing the SAE for All thing. And so it's pretty intense. And if they do it correctly, it takes them about 20 hours. And I'll share this with everybody. But it's very foundational. It's very, very career-based. And I'll probably give this as an option, especially for the virtual classes.
That's good. I think a lot of us will be able to use that. So Dr. Pollard, if you would please share that with Dr. Parks or myself, and we'll be sure to get that out to everyone. Any other questions that people have? Any comments? All right. I think we may wrap up a little bit early here. I think everything, we all have our opinions. We all have our different philosophies about what's important to our programs and the things that we stress and all that. But just my 2 cents. I love the SAE portion of our curriculum, of our program. Of course, everything is important, FFA, curriculum, and lab instruction. But I love the fact that you can address the individual needs of the student. And you can have so many different things going on in your program because of individual SAEs. I think that that has brought a lot of value to our program. And personally speaking, I think that when you have success with a student and their SAE, when something is really cool, we celebrate it. We celebrate it pretty hard here at Newton College and Career Academy. And then that just kind of breeds success among students. So we have a lot of kids that kind of take off with their SAE. One thing that I always tell my class at the beginning of the year is that an SAE is not something that I should beg you to have to do. An SAE is something that you have always wanted to do. And that it is my job to figure out how to help you do that, overcome any obstacles, and push you to take it even a step further than what you think that you can do. And so anyway, so that's my 2 cents. I just had a question privately. Where can I find these sessions after we are finished? Dr. Parks and I are going to be wrapping this stuff up. There's a lot because we're getting emails from different people. We're trying to trim up videos and stuff. We're going to work on that and just get done with that as fast as we can. And then we will be sending out emails and stuff. It'll all be posted. It'll be easy to access. Just give us time to do that. There's just so much going on right now with this online stuff. There's a lot coming in from all kinds of different directions. But thank you, everyone. I also, just so that you know, also had a private text from somebody that said, man, this jargon is like way over my head because they're a brand new teacher. And so don't get discouraged at all. There's people that are out here to help. If you're a first-year teacher or whatever, there is a lot of people in our profession across the state that will assist in all kinds of different ways. So don't hesitate to call on people. Just ask. Yep. All right. Dr. Parks, do you have anything? Does anybody else have any other questions?
No, I think that was a really good session. This is, again, a very important part of our three-circle model in ag education. And I'm really glad we had a breakout session that dealt specifically with that, and we're able to share things that we do in our classrooms that work for us. Because like Jessica said, everybody's different in how they approach it. What works for you and your students is what you need to do. So, all right.
And
All right.
real fast, those first-year teachers, have a little grace with yourself.
Agreed.
You got an SAE, just have some patience and grace.
Agreed. It'll come to you. If you have not typed your name and your school in the chat, please make sure that you do that before you leave. There were 163 of us in here. Thank you for the participation. Tomorrow, what do we have, Walt, in the morning?
All right. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., we have nursery landscape. At 1 p.m., we have basic ag. At 4 p.m., we have wildlife management. On Thursday at 10, we have middle school ag. At 1, we have FFA. Mr. Lashley is going to be sharing some things, and then we'll have a kind of an open discussion about FFA. And then at 4 on Thursday, we'll have our last one will be animal science.
All right, and please be sure.
Same link for all of them.
Yeah, same link. Please be sure that you go back and register so that way we have your email addresses so that we can send this stuff out. Thank you, everyone. There was a lot of sharing going on. Thank you so much for everybody being in attendance. If we can help you out with anything, please let us know.